Welcome to the Ruck Off Rugby Podcast with me, Sam Leeming.
And me, Mark Moss.
This week we have former Canada head coach and technical director Francois Ratier.
Yeah, we talked to Francois about his time with the national team, his development through coaching from playing in France to moving over to coach in North America, his time with the women's team, taking them second in the world, and his interim time coaching the men's national side, as well as the current development and the job that he's doing in Quebec and with their rugby development. Enjoy the podcast.
Please don't forget to give this podcast a like and please subscribe to our channel if you enjoy this podcast. It will help us grow it and get some more special guests on for you guys.
Yeah, welcome to the Ruck Off Rugby Podcast. Quebec's technical director, Francois Ratier. Francois, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good stuff. For just the guys at home, so we're obviously predominantly English-based. Might not know who you are. Can you tell the guys at home a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I was a player in the French Championship in the 90s, playing for Angoulême, who was actually in a Pro D2. Then I moved to Canada in early 2000, where I started to work and develop at every levels, and till I reached the national team. So I coached the national women's Canadian team for 2 World Cups, 2014 and 2017, and I also used to coach the men's team when they had trouble with their coaches and basically firing them. So I was the interim in 2016 for the America's Rugby Championship. So my transition from player to coach has been made in North America, where I was lucky enough to work under the supervision of New Zealanders, English and Welsh people.
Stuff. So you mentioned getting into coaching there. You started your journey off in France, didn't you, when you started coaching? Tell the guys a little bit about that.
I've coached 2 years in France before I moved. I was coaching the under 20 of my club, Angoulême. It was my first experience of coaching for me, and in the same time I was doing my rugby diplomas in France, what is a state diploma, who gives you the possibility to coach professionally. So it was very good point of entry to coach under 20 in my former club, because when you start coaching, obviously you're a bit insecure and you want to save the world, but you can't. So you have to learn how to coach and learn your job properly first. Yeah, so not at the beginning, because I was very focusing on playing, and you don't really think about the game, unfortunately, when you play. I was on the wing, end of the 80s, all the 90s, not the most spectacular rugby in the world. So I was just doing what I was told to do. But at the end of my career, the last 2 years, when I started to get injured, I started to thought about the game because I had more time, and I felt that I have sometimes a word to say about what we were doing. I was not saying anything because you don't talk to the coach, or you didn't talk to the coach at this time, but I felt that I could probably move to coaching pretty soon, because the game was very, very predictable, very conservative, and I had other ideas about it.
Yeah, from our chats that we've had previously, I think it's pretty fair to say that you enjoyed playing, but not how you were coached, and didn't enjoy the coaching that you received.
Yeah, they were good people. and competent. It's not at all the thing, but from what I was watching sometimes on TV or some of the teams or even the French team at this time was playing great. But when we were watching the Australian, New Zealand, those kind of freedom they had on the field, that's the kind of rugby I wanted to play. And we were not like 80% of the teams in the championship. They were very conservative, where the number 10 was the king. It's fine, but were overusing their feet, So
yeah, well, yeah,
right.
some definitely have. So cool. Yeah, and then just obviously that bit of transition from France, and then the step over to Montreal, where you moved over. What made that decision for you to move over there? And obviously you quite liked it. You've been there a while.
Yeah. So the first. When I was done with my diploma at the end of the season, because it was when I passed my diploma, it's a year and a half, so it's a long process. It's like a university cycle, or but sport and rugby in particular. I needed a bit of a break. I was 30 years old, a bit broken, to be honest. My knees, Achilles, a couple of things were dysfunctional, and I wanted to have a break. So I just checked where rugby was played from May to September on the planet, as if possible in French, what is not, you don't have too many destinations. So I just wrote a couple of emails to clubs in Quebec and say, I want absolutely nothing. I just want a club to connect. And if you want, just to have a coaching experience with you guys. So I take care of myself, but if you want me, I can do. So one of them responded, if you want nothing, we have nothing. That's perfect. So I showed up in Montreal. After 2 days, I had 17 new friends, and I started to coach and try to transfer what I learned from my rugby experience and coaching courses from France to Quebec, where they were also very American football orientated, where the coach say, the players execute. So I changed a bit their mind. And yeah, so that's how I moved there. Then I stayed because I met my wife too, and she's Canadian, so it's a big game changer. But I also saw that we could, maybe with other colleagues across the country coming like me from other countries, maybe we could change a bit the Canadian approach or way at our level.
Yeah, definitely, and just through your views and that, from when I went over there a couple of years ago, there's still a little bit there of the American football way of wanting to be a bit more structured than what potentially we like to see playing. But it's changing, and even in the past couple of years, your influence has changed that quite a bit. How did you find going over there? Obviously, with it being bilingual in Montreal, how was your English before you got over to Montreal? I mean, you can get by everywhere in French. It's very much predominantly French speaking. But did you have to pick up your English a bit better, or?
Yeah, my English was the English I've learned at school.
Yeah.
I had two great exchanges with Bristol when I was 14 and 15 years old. But after that, I can say that except the basic conversation to maybe talk to some of the girls in the exchange, other than that,
talk to the girls, order a beer. That's all you need to do.
Other than that, absolutely nothing. So one of my goals was to learn English arriving here too, because we are lucky enough that Montreal is a bilingual city, and also spend a couple of months in Boston at the Harvard University, invited by a friend who was coaching the team, and I had no choice to speak in English because had absolutely no words in French. So it was an immersion, a service exchange. I was helping them in their rugby. They were helping me in my English. So, and then to move on with the Canadian teams or the Canadian program, I had no choice to at least speak a bit of English.
Yeah, moving on to how did it start for you with the Canadian setup? So getting into obviously the elite level, how did that start for you?
So in 2008 or 2007, our new technical director for Canada, a Welshman, Geraint John, who is back in Wales now at the top of I think the coaches or the high performance. He came to Montreal because he was traveling across it's a large country, so he was traveling across the provinces to maybe identify new talent in coaching, and I was at the right place at the right time. I was running a session with the Quebec senior men, and he said, "Hey, I'm interested to maybe put you into the system and starting with Canada U17, because at this time we had a U17, a U20 on the male side, and then senior men." So I started with a U17 for 3 years as an assistant coach, going on a regular base to England at the Wellington Festival. It's a school festival and a Millfield too. Very important destination for our young Canadians, because they were playing against the best U16 in Europe, and we had some very good experiences there. It was great to expose them to a bit of a international rugby instead of always battling against the States. So that's how this was my point of entry. Then Kieran Crowley came to coach the senior men. He was coming from New Zealand. He was a former All Blacks, world champion in '87, just world champion as a coach with the U21, the Baby Blacks. So when he came, obviously for me it was like, okay, that's the person we needed to change the mentality and to give us the tools we need to develop this country in the new era of rugby. Because Canada was very successful at the world stage in the 80s, 90s, based on the huge physicality and some very good technician, as 9-10, for example. But at the end, the rugby moved and we stayed. We plateaued at the same level. Where when Kieran came, he gave that new brief, new thing to boost people, and his approach was definitively the one I thought was the right one, but I couldn't compare to anything. So he take me as a shadow coach with the senior men, and we went to Wales and Ireland for 2 games, international games. So now I was still with the U17, but I was shadowing the national team as I can't say assistant, because you just shadow, you just go to the meeting, you watch the practice, you don't say a word, and I didn't want to say any word anyway, and you just observe. But those observations without the pressure of coaching are fantastic, because you just absorb everything. And I was exactly at that point in my life or career of coaching, I was ready to absorb everything was coming from everywhere, especially if it was good. So I spent time with him. And then in 2013, they asked me if I wanted to coach the senior women's to prepare the team for the World Cup in 2014. So obviously I said yes, and it was a new role for me. I've never coached girls before, so it was a new way of interacting, but not a new way in terms of rugby. It was the same rugby, just different approach. So that's how I moved. But in the same time, in my province, I was still coaching at the university level or provincial level. So it was good because it was making the connection between the level here and the international level. Also connecting with people who were coaching in Quebec and expose them to the national reality, what was great too. Yeah. So the first thing I did is I started to read a couple of books too. one called Men's Coaching Woman, and it seems to be obvious, but you know what? This book was very helpful. I also try to use the common sense about the way to interact. And to be honest, at this level of rugby, at the highest level you can interact with athletes, this man woman's thing doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's about performing, winning, and or losing, and then the interaction is more on a couple of details like the girls wants to know why you do things, the men's wants to know how, basically. So when you build the same practice, you will have probably more questions from the women than from the men, even if I think the men should ask way more questions. But you have also to install into your leadership this, I would say, climate where players will be free to speak, especially at the women's level, where sometimes they were shy to ask or to interfere with, coaching decision or whatever. So what we did is we got to break all those cliche and say, you are athletes, I'm coaching. We want to work all together. We will have to work all together. And because you are on the field and I'm not, your voice is super important. So at the beginning, don't be scared to ask tons of questions, but in the next few years, we will have to reduce the numbers of questions and make it more specific, where at the men's level, sometimes you have to, push them to ask questions because they don't care. They just want to do it.
Want to play and just want to win. I definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with that.
That was the big difference, but I think then after that, it's always the same question that we have to ask ourselves. Do we know the person in front of us? I can tell you that with the national women's, with the Canadian team, the group I had for 4 years, the group didn't really change. It was around 40 players. I knew them, and I knew exactly how to interact with one differently than the other, depending, the situation and the background. But I think it's the same for all of us when we coach, and it's not even a question of gender. It's a question of okay, what is the personality of the player I have in front of me? Some of them needs to be challenged. Some of them, if you challenge them, they just fall apart. So you need to find another way. I think it's always the same. But that's coaching, in fact, because that's our job is all about this: knowing the people we have in front of us and help them to reach their goal. Because we are behind the scene, we're not in the front. We're not on the field.
Definitely. That's what coaches are starting to realize now, that it's not all about the content that you coach. It's more about the context and getting them to understand and understanding the people in front of them. And it's coaching is becoming a lot more social, that we're understanding people rather than understanding the game.
I like the sentence. I think it's a good one in English. They don't care how much you know till they don't know how much you care.
Yeah.
That's exactly that. Obviously, you need to know a bit, because if you just care, it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough. But let's say at the same level of knowledge. Doesn't matter if you coach the high school in the corner of the street or the national team. If you don't care, it's obvious at some point. And if you don't care, you will never be able to help the players you have in front of you. So sometimes it's better to not coach than coaching and doing it because you have to.
Great. And yeah, just for the people at home, the Canadian national women's team reached third in the world, was it, rankings? When you were there? Or was it second? Second in the world.
We were second in the world. We could have been first, but England was in the way.
Yeah, and I mean, since you left, I haven't reached that same standard as what they were, and I think it's recognised what a great job you did by your appointment as interim head coach of the men's team as well. How was that transition for you?
It was a surprise, because I after the 2015 World, so I was in the middle of my cycle with the girls. We finished the 14 World Cup where we were second, and we were preparing the next one in 2017. And after the men's World Cup in 2015, there was a huge review at Rugby Canada about the situation and the results, because Canada didn't win any game, but they, in my opinion, they were playing the best rugby since 10 years. And because of a couple of mistakes, they couldn't hammer the games against Romania and Italy, but they could have, to be honest. It was just a stupid mistake. And I don't think my colleague was responsible, but ultimately, when you coach a national team, you are responsible. So you're the only one. Yeah, exactly. So even if you're not, you are. And he faced the responsibility without any problem. But I think he should have stayed, but they have decided to. It didn't go well after the review, so he left. I don't know if they fired him or he left. I will never really know. He went to Treviso,
yeah,
where he's doing a fantastic job. But he's a great coach, so obviously it works. And they called me in January, just after maybe we're January 10, after the holidays. And I was in Montreal, and they called me from the office in Victoria, which is 5,000 kilometers west, telling me, okay, Kieran is not working for us anymore. I said, okay, oh, wow, why do you call me? It's too bad, I said, yeah, but we want you to replace him for the Americas Rugby Championship. I said, oh, okay, can you repeat that, please? Just make sure I understand where. And they say, okay, would you accept to coach the national team for the RRC? If yes, you have to be in Victoria in 2 days. So just for a meeting.
Yeah.
So obviously I said yes, because you don't have to. You can't refuse to coach a national team. And then I said, okay, I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to figure it out. So we'll see. So I went to Victoria. I met Kieran, who was very nice to me. We had a day together, and I shared all the documents because the selection was already made. I didn't have any impact on it. I just took the file, but he was always supportive, and even if he couldn't do it officially because he was technically not working for Rugby Canada, he was always supportive, and it was great. So. I went to Victoria, took the document, had a chat with Rugby Canada, came back to Montreal, and then I said goodbye to the family for 7 weeks, because we were on the road. We were based in Victoria. We were playing Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, USA, and Chile. So you got it. But yes, basically it went pretty well. We had a very new group of players. I think we kept 16 or 18 new guys. What is great with this competition is it's the good time to do it, but it also counts for points at the World Rugby ranking. So you can't just put the juniors in the team. You have to win games. So we won against the South Americans, except Argentina because it's another planet for us. Lost against the States. So basically, we moved up at the ranking. We started the championship. We were 22nd, and we finished. We were 18. So we said, okay, guys, we were able to maintain a sort of standards, and I was very well surrounded by Jamie Cudmore, Graham Moffat, Chris Silverton, and other people, Canadian coaches, and it was a very a group effort because I couldn't see it differently. For me, it was, okay, this situation is exceptional. We are living a time where if we don't do the job, the team could fall apart in the next 3 or 4 months because there's no leaders anymore. So the way I was thinking, I bring those guys together and say, we have to do it. That's where I'm strong at. That's where you're strong at. That's where you're strong at. I'm the head coach because they decided I am the head coach on the paper. But at the end, we all have to contribute. And or we do something together, or we're going to be ridiculous altogether. But let's do it. So for me, that was the only way to continue. I think they should have continued. I'm not talking with me, but in that kind of way. After that, bringing more people, involving more Canadian coaches around this national team. I think it's gonna go that way again. I hope hopefully soon, because that's what the country needs. The coaches needs to be involved, and they need to feel they are a part of the solution and not just spectators. But you've been there, you know.
Yeah, just going on that interim role that you had. It's a question I've never asked you. It's one that I've been really interested with. Did you want the men's team full time? Was that a job you were interested in? And how did you feel when they appointed somebody else after you did a pretty good job with that in that short time?
It was a part of the deal.
Yeah.
Part of the deal was you do the interim and then you come back to the women's team. And also it was obviously it's financially different, coaching men and women. You know that. But my commitment was with the girls to go to the 17 World Cup and prepare the team for that. So even if I would have delayed that and say, I go to the World Cup first, and then I will jump in any position that you want me to do. What they've done after the 2017 World Cup, they proposed me to be assistant coach or head coach of the academy based in Victoria. So I took the job, but the family was in Montreal. My job was 5,000 kilometers from home. I was coming back every 5 weeks. Tough to deal with. There was a coaching transition too. When they fired another one, Mark Anscombe, and appointed Kingsley Jones. So once again, I was a bit in the middle there. We had no leaders. Now Kingsley take care of the men's program, so there's a sort of stability since 2 years. But in between, it was always unstable. So I did what I respected my words with the girls, with the women's program, saying, okay, we started something, we're going to finish it, and then I'll see. But obviously, everyone would like to coach a national team for at least a World Cup. That's still something I would like to do at some point, but see, I don't force anything. It just if it comes, it comes.
Okay, yeah. So we moved on to so we talked about the time with the national setup and all the great things you did there. you've now moved to technical director of Quebec. Obviously, we talked about you being closer to home. Was that a big influence on why you took that job?
Yes, yes. It was, the timing was good. When I was done with the Canadian Academy, because of the distance and all those kind of problems, logistic problems. In the same time in Quebec, they were the person in charge here as a general manager was quitting his job. So I applied and I had a job. So it's two jobs. In fact, it's a general manager. So all the administrative part where I'm supported by colleagues, and all the technical direction, basically from development to provincial teams. So it's about building and reinforcing programs who are already existing, and try to create and develop clubs or programs in other regions of the province.
Looking at the history of rugby in Quebec and comparing it to the rest of Canada, so looking at Toronto and BC, Quebec hasn't really been seen as a rugby powerhouse in Canada, has it?
No, more in the 50s and 60s, because of the UK immigration for a big part. People from Quebec, young men, because on the women's side we are way ahead, and well represented on the national team, but on the men's side, our best potential rugby players, they don't play rugby. They play American football, hockey, as you know, it's the religion here.
Oh, yeah.
Or basketball, but and soccer. But we can't really compete with American football or hockey because of the scholarships and the possibility for a young man to be professional and win millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So basically here, our best tighted prop or second rows, even back rows, all those guys who would kill someone at the world stage in rugby, they play football, American football, because they can't be really professional in rugby here. And even if they move to Europe, they will have to face South Africans, New Zealanders who play rugby from way longer than them. So it's not easy.
I suppose the growing club culture with the MRL and stuff can maybe that can potentially be a target for players maybe in 3 or 4 years when that league's really developed and that culture has maybe changed, and it's going to be hard to compete with the American footballs, which is a staple there, but definitely something in the future, isn't it?
Absolutely, I agree. I think if the league stays stable, as you said, in the next 5 years, and then reach more people in the 5 years after, let's say if it's sustainable and the level raised in the next 10 years, then yeah, it's fantastic. Because then we will never compete obviously against American football, but we could be another options for young men who doesn't want to play football. Because to be honest, there's no American football people listening, but
probably not.
It's a game about a coach and a quarterback. The general and the captain, and all the others are just do that. You can't even touch the ball. You can't run with the ball. Sometimes it's a monotask. So if you like monotask, that's a fantastic game. But if you want freedom, go to rugby.
I think with the freedom, not wearing pads and just going bare knuckle, I think that's quite an attraction for younger players, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. The thing is, if you make a mistake in American football, you're fired. So believe me, they don't take too much risks. But they are very, very big athletes, and all the guys who made the transition from football, American football, to rugby, and played for the national team were dominant.
They are,
but they had this coachability. They had this capacity to transfer from one monotask to a sport where you can be on attack and defense in 1 second. So
yeah. Well, you know, as I do, when you would have first come over, you would have gone over and been looking at these players and going, holy shit, these are just incredible athletes that are built like brick shit houses, absolutely massive, quick, can change direction better than anybody that we'll see in Europe.
Yeah.
And they're just the most prime athletes. But then you talk to them about rugby, and some of them think, oh, yeah, they think they know what they're on about, and they haven't got a clue. And then others just don't have a clue what's going on. And
absolutely.
It's incredible, that talent pool that both the United States and Canada have of these incredible athletes.
Yeah.
And if some of them decide to choose to play rugby...
Absolutely. It's a question of perspective, culture, and money. We are North America. It's all about money, to be honest. Yep. At the beginning, this country has been, not the Canada, but this continent has been built on the economy and the money. So sport is an entertainment. That's it. Or so if you're not good enough, you go. But if you're good enough, you can win a lot of money. So it's you can talk to the guys about philosophy and values of rugby, and when they do it, when they try it, they love it. Really, to be honest, I've never seen a guy say, "Oh, that's shit." No, it's fantastic, and they are very happy to run more, to tackle more, to pass the ball, to touch the ball, even if sometimes they have no clue of what they're doing. But then they come back to football till they can't play football. So for us, the target would be the one who are not drafted by a professional team, where in Canada or the States, we can introduce them to rugby if it's not too late, and especially some position where you have less responsibilities sometimes, It's very rare to have a 9-10 coming from American football, even if the guy is quarterback. But front row, second row, yeah. I don't say that second row and front row doesn't have responsibilities. They have a huge responsibilities, but it's faster for them to transfer from football to rugby than if they have to make 10 decisions in a minute.
I agree. But so let's talk a little bit about the development of rugby in Quebec. Since you've come in, I personally have seen a massive change in the standard of rugby within Quebec, of what's going on. How are you trying to change rugby in Quebec?
The change needs to be made by the coaches, because it's hard to have an impact on players, except if you have a club or a daily training. But with the coaches, and I'm lucky enough to have around a generation of and it's not young coaches because of their age, but with a young head, and who wants to learn, who wants to share, because some of them knows a lot, but they are scared sometimes to try things. I think more than telling them what to do, it's more to install an atmosphere where they are free to ask, and also I feel free to go to their club and have a session without disturbing anything, and because sometimes you get, oh fuck, another guy is coming to my practice. Yeah. No, it's not at all the atmosphere we have installed here. It's about more friendship and collaboration, because we are small, so when you are 3,000 or 4,000 members, you almost know everyone, So plus the sport at school, what is very developed here at the university level, what is great. We have 5 or 6 universities with men and women's program in the province of Quebec, who are for me the best thing where we can attract players, because it's a daily training environment with fantastic facilities. So I didn't do anything special except making sure that people I was working with were trusting me, and the opposite too. When I'm working with them, is for the benefit of everyone, and myself too, because you have to work every day or coach every day to keep it's a job. So you can't stop and say, okay, I'm going to coach in 3 years. I'm going to do the same. It's all right. No, you have to keep it up every day, every week. Even if you coach in a province or in a country where it's not professional, you have to act as a professional.
I agree. And in Quebec, you've got, for again the English guys at home that don't really know. It's basically a pyramid for your coaches, isn't it? There's quite a few coaches down at this bottom level that have just started picking up, maybe played a little bit of senior rugby, but not very much, but grew up in a football or a hockey culture.
Yeah.
And as you go up, there's a very, very narrow peak at the top where you've got some world-renowned coaches in Quebec right now. But there's a lot of people down this level, and they're starting to come up, and this peak's starting to get broader. So you talk about the one like John Lavery's world-renowned.
Yeah,
Josh Barrio
is the national team. Yeah, it's good.
He's world-renowned. Like if I'm speaking to people who know coaching over here, they know about John Lavery, they know about Josh Barrio because of the work that they're doing over there. And how much are they trying to improve the coaching in Quebec as well? Like they're starting to have a difference, aren't they, within that lower level of coaching?
Oh, it's for the person you have talked to before. They're doing a massive job, because as I've been in that situation before, you have to work sometimes in different job than your passion, and keep your passion alive. And so most of them it's like having two life, the real life and the rugby life. But there's not enough hours in a week sometimes to put everything together. So those guys are really fantastic, and those are coaches in the same. Like a Kevin Rouet in Quebec, or Martial Lagan in Sherbrooke. But for the people or the coaches who are just and that, what I would like to try to do, and I started to work on that with Rugby Canada a few weeks ago by meeting them and talking about that, is to have a professional development on a regular basis, and not just you do your course for 2 days, you get it. I know, but that's how it works. But not only
it's the same over here as well. It's the same over here. It's the same everywhere.
So you do the course, you got the stamp. Okay, good luck. No, we need to have a continuous supervision and help those coaches who want more, who needs more, and we need to respond positively to this. So what I have to do is to build a system in parallel of the certification system, like a continuous learning process. So now with the technology, I think I'm more comfortable to build something, and Rugby Canada is supportive of that, and we do the same in every provinces. We all know that the coaches is not enough. You need to have a professional development, whatever the level. And I would say, especially if you coach, if you're at the point of entry, sometimes at 15 years old or 14 years old, you can't miss the opportunity to have a good coach at this stage, because that's where, to be honest, that's where you learn rugby the most, between 14 and 16, 17. Then it's specialization and more work, and then you got people going there. It's all right. But before that, between 14 and 17, we should have the best coaches there. But it's hard, because the best coaches are already coaching 5 teams in the same times, a university team, a club team, a school team, advising, etc. So you've been there, so you know the reality, and it's almost the same everywhere in Canada or in every tier 2 or tier 3 countries.
Yeah. So really, final question on Quebec is, what's your vision for Quebec in rugby? What's your ideal? I'm fascinated by this. Where do you think it can go?
So based on the last 2 years, and I got a colleague here, Lisa Anne Lessa, who's doing a fantastic job in the development. We were able to reach 20,000 kids last year on what we call the rookie rugby, what is a flag rugby, across the province. So it means we were doing activities in the 19 regions of the province, what is massive because before that we were present in just a few regions. So that's something very important for us and something we want to maintain every year. Obviously this year it's hard, but so we're working with day camps, schools, etc. And Lisanne is following that activity, and I'm confident that obviously we need to maintain it for the next 10 years and see in 10 years if the kids who were 6, 7, 8 years old recognize rugby and wants to play that game when they get older. So we don't know that, but at least they know what is a rugby ball, what is important for us. And they can talk about that sport. We also want to reach more phys ed teachers. Yeah, so we have this rookie rugby program, what is very important. Also interact with every organizations who could introduce rugby into their programs. So it's there's what is on the women's side, men's side, everything about inclusion, all of those programs. We want to be there with rugby, and we are right now. So, but I can't see the benefit now. We will see in a few years, but we need to maintain that or increase that.
Me looking in, I think that you guys are doing a great job. For my first season over there, which was 3 years ago now, there was a big divide between the community of rugby and Rugby Quebec. Yeah. So between the organisation and the clubs, and since you've been in, and since its development, everything's going up.
It was a bit too much administrative where we're running a sport, so we need to see that sport somewhere and everywhere if possible. The other thing too we are developing right now is a partnership with some cities in France for our women's team. So we are right now developing a partnership with Bordeaux, what is great for our women who are playing in the national team to continue their development overseas in good conditions. Also with Vichy in the center of France, where we have some sponsors there who wants to support us. So that's something also I want to develop, because on the women's side we are ahead, as I said, and we are regularly Canadian champions, and we are well represented on the Canadian team. On the men's side is more local. What I want to do is to develop relationship, obviously, with Ontario, because they are our neighbors, and it's a win-win situation. They need more games. We need more games too, and we can be a very good sparring partner. And our neighbors on the other side, what is New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, where we can also compete at the junior level. On the men's side, we are equivalent, where Ontario is way ahead. So developing those regional competition and partnership. My two colleagues are very good both sides, and also north-south with the north of America. So instead of going west or traveling super far, as you know, it's very costly for the kids. I prefer working with what we have around. And I think we have enough around to grow. So that's the strategy. But once again, it's going to take a bit of time, and everything is fragile because of many factors: economy, human resources, etc.
Great stuff. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's been really great to speak to you. We have 3 questions at the end of each interview for all our guests, just to answer, just give guys at home a little bit of advice, really. And the first one is, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Work hard.
Either as a person, work hard. Yeah.
Work hard, and you know what? It works. I mean, it's pretty simple, but if you start something, I don't know. I don't think you have to work out every moment of your life. To be honest, I'm not that kind of a workaholic, you know. But when it's time, and when the kickoff is on, when we blow the whistle, work fucking hard.
Great. Second question is, is there a book or a television series that you've been watching currently during lockdown that people should check out, in English or in French?
Yeah, the guy with the tigers, Tiger King.
Yeah.
It's
been it's brilliant.
I think I would advise it for every coach. Is about to understand human nature.
Yeah, I tell you what, we laugh about that, but there's so much that you can actually learn from that as well as people.
Crazy. Other than that, it's more some books, regular books. Like somebody, it was time to refresh my French literacy, and especially in rugby, where we had a couple of very good writers like René Delaplace or Pierre Villepreux, who were the theoreticians of the moving game. So reading that again, or reading it on a regular basis in your career is important, because you can say, oh, I didn't see that. Oh, I understand that now, and what I was not understanding 20 years ago, for example. So, but so it was time to read some rugby books. But on the TV show, the Tiger Kings is killing everything.
The final question is, what's next for you? So what's next for Francois Ratier?
I don't know. I'm going to continue the work we're doing with the team in Quebec here. Obviously, right now I'm the only one who's back at work, 80% of time, part-time. The goal is to bring back the entire team. We are not many, we are 4, but it's important because we all have a role to play. I'm confident we can do it, and restart the engine, restart the programs, and having a regular season again. And personally, I go year after year and see how things are evolving. But right now, the balance is pretty okay. Yeah.
Good stuff. And just for what, if the guys want to have a look at your, follow your journey and Rugby Quebec's journey, where can they find Rugby Quebec and yourself on Twitter?
Sorry.
Where can they find you? Where can they find Rugby Quebec on? Can they find Rugby Quebec on Twitter, Facebook?
Twitter. Yeah, everywhere.
Everywhere. So at Rugby Quebec on Twitter, Instagram, and Rugby Quebec on Facebook.
We are there. We have as I said, we are 4,000 official members. But we have almost 9,000 followers on our Facebook. As far as it's double of who we are, and it's very active community of rugby. When we knew that they were restarting rugby in New Zealand last, people getting so excited about where we can watch the game and everything. So we have a small population of rugby, but very passionate. What is the base of any development? You need to be passionate.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Francois. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Great. Really, really great to speak to you again. Obviously, it's been a while since we've had a chat. It's it's just great to see the development and everything. I'm really, I nearly came back to Montreal this summer. I had an interview for TMR for their women's job. I didn't get it because I couldn't get out there in time. Basically, they wanted me out in March, and I needed 2 more months to complete my level 3 over here, and so I couldn't get out there. And anyway, coronavirus, so that wouldn't have happened anyway.
We are all on a sort of a pause bubble, right now. So, but things will become normal one moment. Human usually adapt to everything. So,
overcome it.
It's like on the field, or you adapt or you die. So,
That's it. That's it. Coaching's changing, rugby's changing, and the world's changing. It all changes. And
it's always changing, but it's always the same. So, guys,
great
Sam,
to speak.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Mark. And
Thank you very
have a good one, guys. God save the
Speak to you soon. Bye bye.